I'm Frank Garza, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. On today's show, we're going to do a year-end review for the USMNT and give out some awards. We'll choose our Player of the Year, most memorable moment of the year, and discuss which players have seen their stock rise and fall the most over the past 12 months. To help me do that, I've invited Chuck Booth to join the show. Chuck is a soccer writer at CBS Sports. Chuck, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me back to cap off the year.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. I think the last time we spoke was probably not under the best of times. I seem to remember it was like after the Copa America or shortly around that time. And so a lot's happened since then.
A few things may have changed.
Yeah, a few things may have changed. Let's start the show by giving out, a few awards, so to speak. And let's start with who is your USMNT Player of the Year?
So, with this, I wish the answer wasn't so obvious because, it's Christian Pulisic. It's not even particularly close. I feel like it's almost this something where you have to say, it's him. This is his team just no matter what, and he's playing like it. And then who else is it after Pulisic? Which is probably Anthony Robinson now.
Yeah. I know. I was thinking about changing up the question because I do feel like most people, their top two is pretty obvious. Christian Pulisic, Anthony Robinson. I have heard some people give the nod to Anthony Robinson on this one, which is fair. I think it's Christian Pulisic myself, but it does. I think fairly consistently you'd get those two, top two.
The funny thing is, if he didn't shoot himself in the foot with red cards, Tim Weah would also have an argument, but it's just not there yet with the consistency that you get from those two.
Yeah. But that does beg an interesting question: is who would be next in line if you had to give a third place? Who pops into your mind?
Goodness,
kind of put you on the spot there.
Yeah, because
there's no obvious pick. That's why it's kind of an interesting thought.
It's probably Matt Turner. I don't like that answer at all, but he's the next guy that's there and does their job every day.
Yeah. From a strictly national team perspective.
Yeah.
Hasn't had the best club year, but when he's been with the national team.
What club year?
Yeah, that's true. I think I would go with Ricardo Pepi actually as my third because I think he scored some good goals for the men's national team. And then I also like what he's doing. I like the momentum he's building at the club level. When you look at just the changes this season so far, he's getting more playing time. He scored that big Champions League goal. So he's making some progress at a big club, doing well in Champions League. He continues to fight for that number 9 position with the U.S. men's national team. I feel like a lot of people have been just count him out all the time. He's still there, hanging around, scoring goals. So I just think he had a really positive year. I think that's who I'd go with for third place. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I definitely get it there. His case is always an interesting one just because I just want to see him start more games, and that's both for club and country, because it's always hard to judge a player who's coming off of the bench versus what they can do for 60 to 70 minutes actually starting a game on a level playing field to everyone. And it's not to discredit what Pepe's done because there's not much more that he can do with the minutes that he's been given. I just want to see him start games.
Yeah. He's at least, what I'm happy about this season is he's at least starting when PSV has 2 games a week. He's getting usually the Eredivisie start, over the weekend, and then Luke de Jong's playing in the Champions League. But last season, de Jong was starting both of those matches. Pepe wasn't getting any starts. There was no rotation at all. So I'm happy to see him getting more starts there. And And we'll see. It's things could get interesting at PSV. I know De Jong's a legend, and everyone's saying there's no way he'll be replaced. But I mean, he's struggling, and Pepe is soaring right now.
Yeah, he's also not getting any younger. So
yeah, he's not getting younger. Hasn't scored a goal since I think early November, and so we'll see. We'll see what happens with Ricardo Pepi. But yeah, I think this one's pretty obvious who the player of the year is. I think most people are going to pick, Christian Pulisic. Just unbelievable season, and yeah. What about your most memorable moment of the year? And this could be a good moment or a bad moment. I'm strictly talking memorable moment.
I mean, the memorable moment, like, has to be that, like, the period, like, not actually when Mauricio Pochettino was hired, but the period when it was like, oh, he actually thinks that it's a good idea to coach this team. Because I think it was just like mind-blowing for like US soccer and every American soccer fan that this was actually possible.
Yeah. Yeah, you heard there's a lot of dreamers out there that were saying we could get a coach of this caliber, but you didn't know. You didn't really know. And there was some of the names, we went through all these like ups and downs in that, whatever it was, 1 or 2 month period where the search was going on, where you heard names thrown out there like some of the MLS coaches, some other European coaches that didn't quite have Pochettino's pedigree. None of them panned out, and we ended up getting Pochettino. And so I do think that was a big moment.
Yeah, because it's like on paper, it's hard to say that you could have gotten, at the time, a more qualified coach than Pochettino.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, their dream was Klopp, right? I mean, but once that was eliminated, you could argue that Pochettino was really at the top of the list, or in a small group of coaches who would be next on the list.
Definitely.
Yeah, for me, when I was thinking about this, I think we're going for the same thing here. But my actual most memorable moment of the year was Tim Weah's red card in the Copa America against Panama, because I really feel like that single moment defined the rest of the season, and perhaps defines the rest of this World Cup cycle for this U.S. men's national team.
Yeah, if he doesn't get that red card, Greg Berhalter is potentially still coaching this team. Yeah,
I mean, because sure, Panama still could have won that game, but I don't think they would have. I don't think they would have beat the U.S. men's national team at full strength, on home soil, and that would have probably been enough to get the U.S. in the group stage. And even if they would have lost, would Greg Berhalter have gotten fired? I don't know. And then would there be any matches since then important enough to where you could fire him, for something that happened after the Copa America? I don't know. I just think that single red card, while it was really bad in the moment, really put the U.S. men's national team, I think, on a different trajectory going forward.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Let me put you on the spot again here, because when I was thinking about moments of the year, I started thinking to myself, what is the goal of the year? What was my favorite goal of the year scored by a U.S. men's national team member? If you need some time to think about that, I can give you mine.
Oh yeah, and so are we doing club and country?
I was thinking of like in a U.S. men's national team game, but I'll give you either or. And
I'm just trying to narrow it down, honestly, because
I'll tell you mine. Mine was Pulisic's goal against Germany in the friendly we played against them, which I know that wasn't like a super meaningful game, but that was early on in the year. I still think we had a lot of like optimism about this team. Everyone was always complaining about how the U.S. never plays any quality opponents in these friendlies. We're always playing in the Nations League. We're playing these other nations that aren't really testing us. And then we finally get, I think it was Germany and Ghana in the same window, if I remember correctly. And so I was super excited to see how the U.S. could play in that Germany game. And then in the first, I don't know, I think it was the first 20 minutes of the game or so, Pulisic has that golazo where he just kind of dribbles to the right, gets a very little space, and then puts the ball in like the top corner of the net. It was just a world-class goal. We go up 1-0, and I'm like, all right, yeah, we're going to take it to Germany today. And then they ended up kicking our ass, the rest of the match. But it gave me, I remember just getting off the couch, during that match, and when that goal was scored, and just being like really fired up about it.
Yeah, and actually, I've settled on one.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's doesn't feel like this goal was actually this year, but it was, and that's Tyler Adams in Nations League against Mexico.
That's true. That's a good one.
Signing off for halftime and his last moment of the game, just striking at it and to give the U.S. the 1-0 lead for eventually Dos Aceroing Mexico again.
Yeah. That was an important goal too, because I remember the U.S. was dominating that match, but they hadn't gotten a goal. And so if you had gone into halftime 0-0 against Mexico, who knows what could have happened in the second half, but that really kind of, I don't want to say it was a knockout punch, but it was a significant blow for Mexico that they had a hard time recovering from. And it gave us momentum. It would have been a
very different game without that goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that goal. That was an awesome goal. Okay, let's go to stock up. Let's do kind of like a year-end stock up, stock down, but let's start with, looking over the last 12 months, if you were to go all the way back to, January and consider all the different players in the pool, who do you think had the biggest stock up this year? Whose stock rose the most in the player pool?
So, I mean, it's probably Joe Scally, because, thinking about things, I mean, you didn't even know if he was going to be the second choice right back. I mean, left right back, let alone the first choice. And it hasn't been anything necessarily amazing, but he's been reliable enough to play. And considering that we still don't know when or if Sergiño Dest will get back to his best, it's been just a really important, find that he can consistently play right back at a national team level.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about him because I guess so if you went back to January, Dest was not injured, right? So Scally was just the backup, right? And then you look at what he did this year, he became like a regular starter, started I think every match the Copa America. I believe he started every match under Pochettino so far, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think people will argue about how good of a job he's actually done, but I think he's filled in admirably. He's not going to knock anybody's socks off, but he's solidified his place in the team, I think.
Yeah, and that's the thing is at certain points, everyone for the national team doesn't have to be great. Just some positions have to not lose you a game, and he's not losing us games.
Yeah. He's a versatile player. He can play left or right back. He can play center back. I mean, he's a guy that you can throw into big games now, and he can give you a solid performance. So I think that's a good call. I went with Aiden Morris for mine because I think back to January, and I watched him at the January camp, and he was just okay. And I mean, a lot of guys who follow MLS real closely that I talk with, they've just always spoken highly of how good he was for the Columbus Crew. And I just hadn't seen it with the U.S. men's national team. And then it was something about once he went to Middlesbrough, and he started playing for the national team later this summer, I just started to see him like be able to hold his own a little bit more. That first camp under Pochettino, I thought he played really well. And so I think he's like solidified him. Granted, the midfield is very crowded right now, but I think he's solidified himself as a contender for one of the 6 or 7 midfielders you'd call in for a 23-man roster. Whereas before, I wouldn't have put him in that conversation at all, back in January.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. It's been one of those things where even with the move, I was like really excited to see him learn how to play his position being coached by Michael Carrick. And you can see like immediately just like that influence and him being able to deal with the physicality of the championship and like every game being meaningful is having a huge impact on him. It's actually really sad in this most recent window that he got injured just and wasn't able to actually like continue his trajectory, but it's been a really good one.
Yeah. I feel like we have to acknowledge your cat. I mean, for those watching on video, I mean, the cat is not just on screen. The cat is literally crawling on Chuck's back of his neck and trying to like eat his headset cord. I think he's trying to turn your volume up or down right there. So what's your cat's name?
This is Alphonse. Yeah, and he's literally 3 months old now.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, there's no, like, real telling him no, and shutting him outside of my room just leads to him screaming at the door. So it's really just how to keep him off my keyboard, which at least my shoulder is better than my keyboard.
Yeah, that's true. Well, hey, Alphonse is welcome on the show. It's always nice to see a young, budding U.S. men's national team fan. Okay, let's go the other route now. Stock down. Which player do you think has seen the biggest stock down over these last 12 months?
So, I mean, I think the one that's had the biggest impact in their stock down is probably Chris Richards. And I still don't even like really know what's going on there, because it was like he was starting for Crystal Palace and then he got injured and then he wasn't starting for Crystal Palace. And I think it seems like they thought that they were going to actually sell Mark Gahey and then didn't. And now just have way too many center backs and he hasn't been able to get back in. But also he was like one of those guys that because of his technical abilities that you were excited to see under Pochettino, but because of not playing, it's actually been another chance for Mark McKenzie that he's taken and kind of run with so far.
Yeah. I was just before we got on here, I think I was reading a report, I think it was from Doug McIntyre, that Jesus Perez, Pochettino's assistant, is going to be scouting Crystal Palace's match over the weekend to kind of get a close-up look at Chris Richards. So that's interesting. And yeah, he kind of disappeared the second half of the year. And yeah, we haven't seen him under Pochettino yet at all. And he was kind of thought to be the like center back in waiting, and I agree with you. Mark McKenzie's rise, because Mark McKenzie's another person I thought of considering for my biggest stock up of the year award. Yeah, who knows? I don't know what's going on with Chris Richards, but I agree. It's definitely been a stock down from the beginning of the year.
No one really knows, and that's the weird thing. And the other person who's close, but it's just that at least even when healthy, he's still, for now, is going to be the starter for this team, but it's Florian Balogun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I considered him as well, because I think when Balogun first came in, a lot of people saw him as the de facto striker, and I don't think that's the case at all. He may very well end up being the starting striker for the U.S. men's national team, but I do think it's a completely open competition right now, to where he no longer has like a firm hold on it or is guaranteed, that position. And who knows now with the shoulder surgery that he's having, what's going to happen.
Yeah, it was like really unfortunate that, of course, he and Josh Sargent got injured at the same time. So it's like, even with seeing like, okay, who's that next man up? Like, we still haven't fully gotten to see that yet.
Yeah. Well, okay, so you went with Chris Richards as your biggest stock down. I think I'm going with another center back, actually, and that's Miles Robinson. And this might explain why Tim Ream is still playing when your biggest stock down and my biggest stock down are both young center backs, who we keep thinking are going to step up. But I don't think Miles Robinson did anything terrible. I've just seen him kind of slip down the pecking order, to where I thought of him as a starter at one point. Now it seems he's being called into camps, but not really playing much. So now he seems to be kind of on the bubble. They usually bring 4 to 5 center backs into camp. He's, I think, right at 4 or 5, right now. I think with Mark McKenzie's emergence, it's hurt him a little bit. And, he made the decision when he had the opportunity a year ago to go to Europe. He made the decision to stay in MLS. And, I wonder if that's hurt him a little bit. I don't know. What's your thoughts on Miles Robinson over the past 12 months?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're about right, because it's like every time, even that you do see him with the national team, it just doesn't feel like things are as fluid as they used to be. I mean, some of that might be the injury, like, because I don't feel like he's the same center back that he was pre-injury, where it was just like, yeah, you put him on the left side, anything that comes his way, you're confident that he's going to step appropriately and deal with it. And that's just not the case anymore. But yeah, like this, I mean, the center back pool as a whole is just very concerning. Because even when you're looking at like Cameron Carter-Vickers and Austin Trusty, like, it's not like their performances for the national team are great. And I mean, like, it's always a weird thing, because you can never judge them on a couple of performances, because even before getting this consistent run, even Mark McKenzie's performances weren't great for the national team, but they've been a lot better now that he just like knows that at the moment he's the guy next to Tim Ream. That was supposed to be the guy next to Chris Richards, but like, I guess we just got to take what we have, which is very unfortunate due to the fact that like any moment could be Tim Ream's last game. Yeah.
I tell you where I am with Tim Ream. Let's see. So we're in 2024. After the last World Cup, I was basically like, don't give Tim Ream any more minutes, because you just know he's not going to be playing at the 2026 World Cup. So like, why not give the other opportunities to some of these younger players? But I got to the point somewhere along the last 6 months or so where I changed that perspective, and I thought, okay, nobody's beat him out. Like, now I'm like, I want them to keep playing. I want someone to beat him out. And I don't want to give the position to anybody. I'm not going to assume what Tim Ream can or can't do in 2026. I mean, so far, so good. Nobody's beat him out yet. And so until somebody like beats him out, I want to see him keep putting him up there. I don't want to give a gift to anybody and just be like, well, I think Tim Ream's going to be like this in 2026, so we're going to stick this guy in. I want one of these young players to like beat him out of his position,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's kind of just the thing there is, like, Pochettino's job is to play the best team available to it. And right now, that best team involves Tim Ream. Like, it shouldn't, but like, also that's every other center back's fault.
Yeah, he's nobody's beat him out. Okay, well, one more thing I want to talk to you about here is, we've kind of taken a look back at the year. When you look ahead to the next year, 2025, what is something you're really looking forward to in the year ahead for this U.S. men's national team, or that you want to see?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to in 2025 is that we should see Tyler Adams again. Because now, like, I mean, he's been held out of the last few camps while working back to health with Bournemouth, but actually starting games for a team that's improving rapidly in the Premier League. And while, like, we've been able to deal with not having him, especially with Aiden Morris playing, that doesn't mean it won't be great to still have him with the national team for, like, hopefully bigger games in the future. I mean, the upcoming schedule is not the greatest, but, like, you're still gonna want him sooner than later.
Yeah. It'll be great to get Tyler back. I tell you what, the thing I'm looking forward to the most, I think, next year is similar to injury recovery like you, but it's a different player. Serginho Dest.
Oh yeah, no.
I've been missing me some Serginho Dest.
So I'm actually fascinated for how Pochettino is going to use Anthony Robinson and Serginho Dest, because, like, we saw in the most recent camp, like, he was basically having Robinson, like, come inside like a Pep Guardiola fullback. I don't know if you can do that with Dest on the field. And so it's going to just be very interesting to see how he uses two fullbacks who are very capable attacking, but, like, shouldn't be attacking at the same time. But also, like, by that point, we'll now start seeing, like, players knowing how Pochettino wants them to play, because, like, everything in these camps has been a bit piecemeal. And, like, basically, it's like since March, we've seen 45 minutes of good soccer from the U.S. men's national team. So I'm also looking forward to seeing an entire good game. But I don't think it'll be too long until we get that.
Yeah. And it was an amazing 45 minutes. You're talking about that first half against Jamaica,
That's
right?
correct.
At the home leg of the Nations League quarterfinals. And I was thinking when I was watching that, or shortly after, it was like, they looked so dynamic. Imagine putting Serginho Dest out there as well. I'm so interested to see what Pochettino does with him, because who knows? I mean, I wouldn't have expected Pochettino to move Weah over to the left wing. Who knows what he does with Dest?
Well, that's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised, considering how the right wing has been operating lately, if Serginho Dest pops up there at some point.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. 100% agree. But I'm going to have a smile on the first match where he's playing for the U.S. men's national team, and I turn on the TV and they show him down there in the warm-ups, I'm just going to have a smile on my face, because he has a certain flair and a flashiness to him that makes him an exciting player to watch. And I miss having that as part of the U.S. men's national team. The one other thing I'll mention, I think, is the Gold Cup next year. There's been some rumors that we're going to get some more guest invite nations than normal. I think a lot of people are going to be eager to maybe use the Gold Cup for like a test run for the World Cup. It's a perfect opportunity of that. So I do think, U.S., Mexico, Canada, everybody's going to send their best teams. Hopefully we'll get some good guest nations. And I think this could be the most exciting Gold Cup we've seen, in quite some time.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, even January camp's going to be fascinating this year, because, like, Pochettino very much is still trying to figure out who his depth guys are. Like, I mean, with the national team, it's pretty clear what the best 11 is. Probably pretty clear even what the best 14 players is. But 15 to 24, literally, who knows? So, like, this will be probably the best chance that, like, those young domestic players will have before the World Cup to actually break into the squad.
Yeah. And Pochettino keeps saying that, he doesn't care if you play in MLS, Europe, Liga MX, wherever, you're going to have a shot. And so here's going to be his chance to bring in all these MLS players to a camp and see which ones impress him. So I'm looking forward to those matches in January against Venezuela and Costa Rica. It was recently announced. Well, Chuck, I will make sure and put links in the show notes to your X account, which is at Chuck Booth Sport, and also to your work at CBS Sports. Thank you so much for coming back on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, or that follow button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else, thank you so much. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X at FrankGarza007, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.